Okay, I'd like to call to order the February 6th, 2025 meeting of the Springfield Police Advisory Committee. Welcome, everyone. It is just after 6 o'clock, 6:01. Tiffany, could you please call the roll?
Alan Stout.
Here.
Josh Aguilar.
Here.
Daniel Davidson.
Here.
Cindy Koza.
Here.
Jonathan Hayes. Carla Berg.
Here.
Bree Dillon. Here. Adam Jenkins is excused. Nancy.
Here.
Eric Adams.
Here.
And welcome, Counselor Stout. If you would like to introduce yourself, we would love that.
Hello, Alan Stout, newly elected and am replacing dear Joe Piscineri in this position. So that was the mayor's choice and also Joe's nomination. I was very honored to come to the awards ceremony on last Tuesday. And it was an exceptional work, and I feel very honored and gratified to be in any part working with the police department. I'm a Eugene native. I grew up and graduated Sheldon High School 2004, graduated. So yes, I am the youngest serving member of the city council, but it is truly a great honor, and I'm a small business owner in town here. So that's all. Thank you.
Excellent. Well, welcome to the committee, Counselor Stout. We're really excited to have you on board, and obviously some wonderful shoes to fill with Counselor Piscineri, but he speaks very highly of you. So glad to have you with us. Moving next then on our agenda to minutes approval from our last meeting on December 5th of 2024. Would someone like to make a motion of approval?
I'll move to approve the minutes of the last meeting.
Okay, can I get a second?
Second.
Yeah, Cindy got it.
Okay.
It was real quick. Yeah.
Any changes to the minutes before we call for a vote? No. Okay. All those in favor say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
And Eric, we have no business from the audience. There's no attendees in person that have asked to speak and none online.
All right, so we can skip over that section of the agenda and move then to business from Springfield Police Department. And I assume Deputy Chief Rush is with us this evening. I can't tell.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay.
From a distance. So just because Counselor, you mentioned the awards ceremony, we had one person who was not able to be present for our awards but did receive one. So tonight we will present it to her here. On January 12th, 2024, Springfield Police Department dispatch received a call that a passerby observed a community member, Cindy Koza, administering CPR to an incapacitated man on Main Street near the Springfield bus station. Koza was nearby when she observed the man walking and then fall over. Oregon State Police Trooper Smart happened to be in the area and stopped to relieve Koza and continued to administer CPR as the victim was still unresponsive. Hearing the call, a Springfield Animal Control Officer, Brian Austin, responded to assist. The Animal Control Officer retrieved the automated external defibrillator, otherwise known as an EED, from his vehicle and prepared the device to administer a shock to the man. The AED deployment was successful and the man was breathing when he was transported to an area hospital by paramedics. The man has since undergone open heart surgery, has been discharged from the hospital, and is expected to fully recover. For their quick actions and life-saving measures, Analyst Brian Austin, OSP Trooper Smart, and community member Cindy Koza are hereby presented with the Springfield Police Department's Life-Saving Award. So, very good. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, his name is Bill and he's my buddy. He comes and sees me every once in a while at my office, a couple blocks away.
Oh, that's sweet.
Yeah,
That's
he's
awesome.
doing really good.
I'll tell the officers that update that.
Yeah,
I don't even know if they knew who he was.
yeah.
Because we usually don't get follow-up like that, so that's great. Anyway, sorry you couldn't make it, and there was a little bit of confusion because on half the invites that I sent out to people, I put the wrong date. So the invitation had the right day, but the email had it wrong. So I apologize to Cindy that we got a
Yeah,
little
no
confusion.
worries.
She wasn't able to make it, but okay. All right, so in addition to the award ceremony, which I don't know, I know there were a few of you here that were able to attend. It was a great event. I kind of like, I know we've kind of done a different format for 3 years now, I
Yes,
think,
I've
having
heard
it at Wildish, which I really like because we can have more community members present. And so I know that we're always looking for ways to improve it. So if anybody has some thoughts or ideas on ways to make it better, I love ways that we can recognize all the great work that not only all of our officers do, but all of our professional staff, non-sworn, detention, and community members. So just keep that in the back of your mind. We have a whole nother year until the next one, but I think there's lots of opportunities to recognize our folks. And even though I always hear people say, I don't need to be recognized, people like to be recognized. So if there's a way to improve that, that would be great. We had one new officer, Officer Monson, who graduated from the Basic Academy a couple of weeks ago, actually probably about a month ago now. So he is here doing part of his field training with his coaches. Officer Monson's a little unique in the fact he's actually been an SPD employee for like 2.5 years now. But he is also active duty reserve. And so he got hired here and then he got sent to Africa for a year, almost just like that. So he had a little bit of training, was gone for a year, came back, graduated from the academy, and now he's working his way through the phases and hopefully will be out on patrol on his own in the next few months. And that kind of leads me to, we just hired another lateral officer from Corvallis. His last name, it's Andrew Barry is that officer's name. He's only been here 2 weeks now. He's had the super fun part of watching all of the videos associated to the city and, all of that kind of stuff. So he's working his way through that. And then hopefully laterals obviously don't take as much time to get out on the street, but they have to go through certain, they have to go through all of our policies. They have to go through our firearms training, our control tactics. And every agency is a little bit different. So we want to make sure that they are very aware of what our expectations are if there's any differences between, he comes from Corvallis. We have, excuse me, we have 2 additional laterals who are in the process that we hope to have hired by the end of this month. 1 additional brand new hire that we hope to have by the end of this month. We just did a testing last weekend. And we have 5 individuals that will be going to chief's interviews for brand new officers and 4 individuals that will be going to chief's interviews for detention officers. Detention, we really need 2 detention officers. Detention officers are very difficult to find. And so it would be great if we could get 2 more to help out with our staffing. Because we have some people, when we don't have enough staffing in detention, then people have to work a lot of overtime and that gets hard on people after months and months. So I'm hoping that we get a couple there. Let's see, we did also just, it's not a promotion in Springfield to go to detectives. It's an assignment, like a special assignment. And so we just specially assigned 2 new individuals to our detective division. And that's so Detective now Lisa Duncan and Detective Caitlin Loper. So we have 2 new detectives that replaces one detective who had retired a while ago. And then we had another officer who, it happens a lot. We train them in digital forensics and then the private world says, I can pay you a lot more money to do that. And they go somewhere else. So we lost 1 digital forensics detective and Detective Loper has replaced that individual. So detectives still a couple positions short as far as what they're allotted for. And then we are still about, don't quote me on this, but I think we have about 8 or 9 vacancies in our sworn staff total. So we're hoping that we could hire 4 officers in the near future. And that puts us about where our cap is for what we can afford. Right, because it's people are more expensive as they're going through training. So you kind of have to have a buffer there for a little bit. So, I mean, things are looking good. I'm hoping, we do have a couple people who are eligible to retire next year. So it always seems like you reach this spot where it's so great and then somebody leaves and then you have to refill, find a replacement for them or something like that. But I think so far it's been great how many laterals that we have coming here. I think it's really speaks highly because it's all word of mouth. Our laterals are talking to other laterals, and so we're getting some. I know we had one individual who tested last weekend and tested specifically because he's friends with one of our newest laterals and was, had heard really good things about being here. And so he tested last weekend as well. So I take that as a positive when you have other people coming here. You don't ever want to be the agency that's stealing everybody else's officers, but that's just kind of how it is now. I mean, we don't have tests where thousands of people are taking these tests anymore. You're down to 50 to 100. So
I haven't heard of any laterals going out from SPD. Is that correct in the last couple of years?
not that I'm aware of. Have we had anybody? No, we've had like a couple of retirements.
Right.
Yeah, well, the digital forensics person going to another, but that's a little bit different.
Right.
But yeah, we haven't had any officers leave for that, knock on wood, that I'm aware of. So that's good. I like that.
With those 8 vacancies, do those include the 5 officers that are at the chief's interview process right now?
If we filled, if those 5, then we'd have 3, right? But I think we can actually only afford to hire 4.
Okay.
So it would be awesome. Unfortunately, historically, all 5 of those people wouldn't be put through
Sure.
to the background. So it'd be great if we could get 4, but
Okay.
over a couple.
Just a question on the digital forensics
Yeah.
officers. My neighbor happens to be one, but for
Yeah.
like the San Diego Police Department.
Yeah.
Is remote work something that would be beneficial for the department? I mean, obviously, it's not as ideal as in-person work.
Yeah,
I'm just curious, since it's a digital thing, is that something y'all have explored as far as?
so we've never explored like remote. I've never, in all of the departments that I'm aware of here, have heard of it remote. I have heard of it as like non-sworn. Some agencies have non-sworn digital examiners. And there's pluses and minuses to that as far as what you can say in court and, all of that kind of stuff. But I've never heard of anybody doing it remote, and I'm trying to figure out like, how does he remote a phone? Yeah, that's what I was like. Yeah, clearly it can be done because he's living here and doing it in San Diego, but
Right.
yeah.
I connect the two of them.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Yeah.
I think I would rather live in San Diego and.
No, she does the opposite.
Yeah. So. But yeah, as we look at that, yeah, it's a very, it takes a lot of money to get people trained in all of that. So unfortunately.
Out of curiosity.
Yeah.
The new hires,
Mhm.
how long does it take for them to go through training? And then also how long is it until they're actually able to do the job alone?
Like out on their own. So usually, like if you take a test, and here it's nice because we're like a smaller agency, so we can usually get stuff done a little bit faster, less levels of things to go through. So let's say the folks that took this test last weekend, they're gonna do chief's interviews next week. And then they'll either be sent, so what happens when you take the test, you take a written test, and then you pass or fail. If you pass it, you go immediately down the street and you do the ORPAT, and then you do which is the physical fitness test. And then you meet with our initial panel. And the initial panel is usually a sergeant. I think you've been on them before. So we'll have like some of our professional staff, and then a couple of officers, and they'll just do the general first interview. Folks who pass that, then it goes to HR. HR does all of their stuff, whether or not people have different veterans points or anything like that, all gets taken care of there. Comes to the chief's interview, and then it's usually the chief and 1 or 2 other people, and they'll interview all of those folks again. It goes back to HR, they recalculate everything again, and that usually takes a couple of weeks to get through that process. And then they're assigned a background investigator. And so we have certain individuals here who've taken background investigation training. And depending on if you were born and raised in Springfield, we can get through it pretty quickly. If you were born on the East Coast, moved all over, and were in the military, it takes a lot longer because we need to go out X amount of rings. Because, if you talk to my mom, she's going to tell you I'm the greatest person ever and I could do this job, no problem. You have to go out X amount of rings before you find the people who maybe, saw you in other situations that would share information. And we see that occasionally where, you know, we get far enough out that we find the friend from college who remembers this incident that you were not truthful about. So when the officers fill out all of their information, they have to fill out, I'm not sure if we call it this might be a term from my previous role. It's called a personal history statement. And you have to write out all the places you've lived, all of the places you've worked, you know, the cars that you've owned. You have to give like 12 references. And we contact all of those people. And then we ask those 12 references for 3 or 4 other references. And you start just expanding until everybody just starts pointing to the same people and you run out of people to look for. Because it's when you start getting out further. And then if we find that you were untruthful in any part of that, that's like an automatic no. Because the truthfulness is such a huge factor here that, and then you get interviewed, right, by your background investigator. Your background investigator is going to come in and say, is all of this accurate? You're going to say yes or no. And then once, if you make it through the background, then you have to go do a psych test. And it's long. It's really long. You fill out
like a day and a half or
it
something.
takes forever. You fill out hundreds of questions and then you send it in and then you meet in either Zoom or in person with the psychologist. And that, yeah, it takes hours to go through that. And you even have to do that if you're a lateral. So like when I came here from Portland, I had to redo the psych process to come down here. And then after that, you have a medical exam. So it can take anywhere from a couple of months to a few months, depending on how long and how complicated your background is and how fast your references get back to us. So I always tell all of our new hires, I'm like, if you're doing this, you need to let people know I have used you. Please get back to them as soon as possible because it could hold up my employment. So then once you do that, you get here and depending on DPSST, which is the state training academy, they'll have openings and we try to get our folks in. The average wait time now, which is so much better post COVID, is around 60 to 90 days. Used to be, we were waiting like 8 to 12 months to get somebody to the academy because they were so backlogged. They've done a really good job. So we're waiting like 30 to 60 days. And then the academy is, it used to be 16 weeks. It's not. I think it's 12 now. That's the basic state academy. Every officer in the state has to go through 12 weeks. And I think it's 12 weeks, either 12 or 14. And they come back to us and then they get with a coach. So we call it FTO, Field Training Officer. And we have like 4 levels. So basically you're brand new and all you're trying to do is just kind of figure out what's going on. Listen to the radio, figure out what your call sign is, talk on the radio because we talk in a certain way and, you know, say certain things, know what the codes are. If you're not from here, just trying to figure out where you are because knowing where you are is like critical in our job. And like a good example is the addressing system here is polar opposite to Portland. So like in my whole 25 years before I came down here, Northwest to me is how I remember it, Northwest odd. The addresses are odd. It's on the north or west side of the street. They're on the southeast side of the street here. So I always like where the address is. It's so, you have to unlearn things and learn a bunch of things. So they work their way through different phases till they get to what we call as critical, where you're out there by yourself, but your coach basically follows you around. And they'll cover you on a call if you need cover. But other than that, they just watch you. They watch you interact, make sure you're doing what you're supposed to do. You're following our policies and procedures. You know the laws, you know what crimes you're coming to. And then once you're done with critical, you're on your own. And that probably takes you that whole process somewhere 12 to 14 months. And then the next 4 to 6 months, you're still on probation. So our probation here is 18 months long. So if you make it through that 18 months, you are a standalone, non-probationary Springfield police officer. Yeah. Yeah. So that's why, you know, when people are like, oh, we hired some people. And I'm like, and I love all of our new people, brand new people. And I always tell them this. It's not that we don't love you, but you don't count yet. So the second you are on your own off probation is when you really impact our staff.
How long ago did that process get implemented? Because it's a long process,
Mhm.
great process.
Yeah.
But like, how long ago was that implemented in the department here?
In the department, it's historically, as far back as I know, probation's been 18 months. 18 months was my probation. I got hired in 1999.
It used to be 12 months. It was changed probably 15 years ago or so because and we changed the language, so it was either something about finishing the academy or whichever
Yeah.
came first, because someone got injured and they were out for like 6 months on an injury and then went to the academy and their year was up and they were off probation, but they weren't even done
Weren't
with
even-
their
yeah.
training. So
And so we have changed that too. So if you get injured, your probation pauses. That kind of stuff. But my probation was 18 months in 1999. So I think it's pretty standard about that length. Yeah. So it takes a long time. Yeah. Yeah.
Any other updates or questions from the committee? Okay. Anything else for this agenda item then? Not seeing anything, so I guess we'll move on to the annual report. Is that what I have next?
Yeah.
Okay. Business from the committee. So Terry and I and Carla met a couple weeks back and reviewed a draft of the annual report. And Cindy, I think, may have contributed to this too along the way. It is essentially a compilation and summary of the meeting minutes from the last year. So hopefully everyone had an opportunity to review that prior to the meeting. But the path forward here, unless there's any changes, would be to have Tiffany finalize this and then present it to council. Not sure when that is scheduled to take place.
I will, as soon as we finalize it, I will ask them for a date
Great.
to get.
Okay.
on it.
So I guess call the question for the committee members. Any edits or additions, or are we content with what it presents?
Eric, I thought the report was really good, comprehensive. No questions from me. I appreciate the work put into it, and yeah, I'm comfortable with it as presented.
Okay, thanks, Brett. Carla and Terry, when we met with Tiffany, I was trying to remember there was maybe an additional bit of information or content that we had discussed, perhaps including, and my recollection now is that we were maybe contemplating noting a couple of specific community events that we may want to attend as committee members. Is that correct?
I think I just added it there at the end,
At the end, yeah.
but I didn't specify the community events, but I mean, as they come up, we can of course talk about them in these meetings.
Yeah, Eric, I think one of the things that we talked about on that too was that it's a good idea to attend some of these events so that we can look.
Right. Okay. Well, I'm comfortable with leaving it just in general and noting that intent. I think that definitely is consistent with the purpose of the committee, but okay, well, unless there's anything further, do we need to vote on this for adoption?
I think
Can't remember what our standard practice is. Yes? Okay. Call for a motion for approval of the 2024 annual report as presented.
I'll make the motion.
I'll give a second.
Excellent. All those in favor say aye or raise your hand. All right, looks unanimous. Excellent. Well done on that. Okay, moving on then to our next item, scheduled police or policy review. We have two here this evening. The first one, 36.2.2 jail transport van in-car video system.
So I'll tell you, there's just a couple changes that will be made to this policy. They're not big, but there's just a few things we need to clean up. So in section 36(1.2.6, second paragraph where it talks about professional standards division sergeant, it's actually the detention training sergeant that's responsible for making sure that all of the detention officers get the training. And then this training is stored just like all of our other body worn camera and in-car video with our digital technician. So that paragraph just needs to be reworded to more accurately reflect that. And then if you look in 36.1.2.7, the next one, section E, we don't use the term focused blows anymore. That's in like an outdated term. We use the word strikes, so strike or punch. So that term will be replaced with the more accurate current language that we use.
Okay, any questions from the committee on those changes? Deputy Chief, so when would those changes be made and then the policy is finalized and then I guess presented for adoption? What's the timetable on that
So
typically?
these are what I believe are simple enough to change that don't require anything but me to send it to the chief and say we need to update the language in this policy. And I can do that and let you know when it's been completed. I don't believe that this needs to take any other action except for that. And if it does, I'll let you guys know. But when I reviewed this, I was like, oh, this, you know, has been out for a couple years and there's just a few things that we've changed. So we'll just update it.
Okay, great. And our next one, 36.1.3, public release of body worn camera / in-car video footage of critical incidents.
I had a question and a fix. Just pulling up. Under 36.1.3.5, expectation of privacy. Just a grammatical thing. Item 4 needs a new line. It's in line with item 3. And item 3 says images of law enforcement officer or private citizen receiving medical attention. I was just curious why it specifies who and if and why medical attention is kind of called out. Like I get if there's private parts that are being attended to, but I was just curious why medical attention and the type of people receiving it were specifically called out.
Well, that basically covers everybody. I think it was to cover like specifically saying like if the officers are in the hospital getting, you know, medical attention, they're not expected to keep their cameras on, and the other officers responding should make sure to turn their cameras off for that kind of stuff. Receiving medical attention is a little vague because if AMR shows up on a call and they're doing something, our cameras are probably still on. This, I think probably we could look at specifying more medical attention, like if they're being examined in a hospital by a nurse or a doctor that's requiring like removal of clothing or something, we could be a little bit more specific on that.
Could it possibly have to do with HIPAA?
Yeah, and that's what I was just gonna say. There are HIPAA regulations and hospitals will say, hey, you have to turn your camera off here, you know, that kind of thing. So we can work on making that a little bit more clarified, because again, if the ambulance shows up because, you know, you cut your hand or something, we're not gonna turn our camera off for that, but they are receiving medical attention. So I'll make a note of that one.
Thank you. Those are the only things I have.
Let's refer to the release, so we wouldn't release images of people.
Correct. Yeah, we wouldn't, that's one that we wouldn't release, but we would release that. We would release that body worn camera video. We could, sorry, we wouldn't, but like we could release if it, let's say there's something and there's a car accident and for some reason we have to release it and AMR is there giving care to somebody. I don't know that we would necessarily cut that part out. So I'll just ask, I'll clarify on it. And then image of, you had a question about number 4?
In the copy that I have, 4 is in line with number 3 and it just needs its own new line.
Oh, I don't know how you got that. Mine are separate.
Yeah, mine
3 and 4
yeah.
are separate.
must be
Oh,
the,
interesting. Okay,
Yeah.
Yeah,
So, okay.
they're separate.
thank you.
All right, any other comments or questions on that policy? Very good, okay. And moving on to our last agenda item, any member information to share? Just raise your hand or just shout it out.
Okay, I can shout, kind of.
Cindy.
Yes, thank you. So, I think everybody, maybe not you, know that I have a caregiving agency, and so I wanted to share something that I think might impact the community and the police department. So, the legislator had proposed a $34 million cut to SACU. Anybody know what SACU is? It's the Secure Acute Care Unit. I think it's in Salem, but they're like the lockdown unit. And so some of the most violent clients that I've supported here in Springfield that have almost killed some of the caregivers even, they go to the SACU. And so for the state to make such a huge cut to them, there's already like a waiting list for months for people that have like assaulted and seriously hurt people. So I think it's gonna make it a lot worse. But they also are trying to get group home providers to take these people. So they've like increased like funding for group homes and foster homes to try to get people out of SACU, which would just be a lot of, in my opinion, like new providers that see like high rates for clients and they're like, oh, that's like a lot of money. I can support this person. But ultimately they're not like experienced or prepared to support violent and unstable people. So anyways, I just wanted to share it because I always write your legislator, but I think it might affect, all the
Yeah.
calls, we call you guys all the time.
Yeah.
And yeah, so.
So that's just a proposed cut?
Mhm.
Okay.
I will run it by rest of the council and see what's possible in terms of using our legislative resources to simply, since Springfield City Council has a lobbyist on contract, we can see what's possible to discuss that with our legislators who have been wonderful to deal with.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Absolutely wonderful to do.
Do you know what, is it associated to a bill?
I don't remember off the top of my head.
Okay.
But and I think it sounds good, like, okay, we're able to get these people out of like a lockdown unit and into the community. But like the practical, like if they were to live in my group home or anybody's group home, like it's definitely poses a lot of risk to the community and other people. And then it's nearly impossible to get them out and back into the SACU because it's right now a 3-month wait list. So they're competing with clients from all over the state to get into that unit, so.
Yeah. Is it SACU? Okay.
Harry,
I'm fine, thank you.
I thought we decided that we were all gonna have homework.
We did. Well, let's see, I'll pass for now and come back.
Okay. Josh, do you have anything?
No.
No.
I must have missed the homework.
Yeah, we talked, I think was it last meeting or the meeting before? It was last meeting. We decided that, that part of SPAC's, building awareness and outreach between the community as a whole, that at these meetings, each member would try to have stuff to share from the community.
Oh, okay.
So.
Okay, well, I do that. My neighborhood, I live in Washburn, and it is apparently a pretty safe neighborhood. We don't have a lot of packages being taken off porches, and some have sat there for a couple of days, I noticed around my immediate neighborhood. And we don't have a lot of strange people coming into the neighborhood. We have a lot of dog walkers. And if anybody wants to move to the burn.
It's a safe place.
It is, apparently so. So I don't see many police cars around there either. So maybe.
We're
they're
kind of in the
going
middle
to-
of it.
I would say we're kind of in it. I think that's probably why is half the time there's like cars going on. Yeah.
So I just wanted to kudos to Washburn.
Thank
I'll make up for Josh. I got two things.
Okay.
So, just maybe a question. I was at the award ceremony with,
Yeah.
some of my kids, and my wife, and, well done. I just noticed there wasn't a lot of showing necessarily from the department, and I was just curious how much that is incentivized or how much that's promoted even within the department.
Yeah, so we've never made it very formal. So there were some officers there who some people wouldn't recognize because they weren't in uniform. We've never made them wear, if you go to other places, sometimes they'll make them wear class A's and it's a little bit more formal. But in kind of testing the waters with the officers, they kind of like, I think, the lower key feel of it. This year, a lot of our recipients were on duty, unfortunately, so we can't pay overtime to give you an award. And then I think like it's gotten better over time. I think for a while, people were a little bit like unsure of what it was gonna be like. And, okay, there's gonna be people from outside there and, is the media gonna make it a thing? And they were a little hesitant. But I think each year we've seen more and more. If you have ideas of how to get more officers there, sometimes it's hard because people, again, they're like, well, I don't want to go stand up in front. And I'm like, well, we're gonna give you an award. You have to stand up. And what I try to also emphasize a lot of times for anybody that's getting an award where it's, an officer or professional staff or whatever, is sometimes it's not for you. You bring your family to this event, right? They give up a lot of time so that you can come to work. And they also know the job that you do and that sometimes it's dangerous and stuff. And so these awards, I think, are just as much for family sometimes. And I'm trying to get the officers to understand that. Like, bring your parents, bring your kids. This maybe it's not a big deal to you, but it can be to them. So, but if there's ways you can think of, I would.
Yeah, I think you're onto something. I mean, we played it up to our kids and they were
Yeah.
eager to come. And I think it just deepens an appreciation in them for our local law enforcement.
Yeah,
And it did that, it accomplished that.
yeah.
And part of the fun was they looked down at that table and where all those awards are and said, who's that?
Yeah.
The maroon sweat. And I said, Tiffany, she's an organized lady I know. And I know you made it happen. It was well done.
Yeah,
It really
every year.
was. Yes,
Yeah.
yeah. And so, overall positive. I
Yeah.
just was curious about the
Absolutely.
response. But then also, our church hosted the CIT training this morning.
Uh-huh.
Very positive.
Oh, good.
The staff and even other departments were there. I think they
Yep.
had,
County.
OSP, the county, even, LTD had some, security there and, but great attitude, very appreciative of it, positive experience, for our staff.
Yeah, that's the crisis intervention training.
Yes.
So all the officers are required to attend basic 40 hours of crisis intervention training. So
Mhm.
we are lucky enough that we have two facilitators here, so they host quite a few.
So that was it, just those two things.
Awesome, thank you.
You didn't know about the
Maybe Joe didn't pass along the homework to you as one of the, yeah.
I'll just say two things. One is, so I attend St. Alice Catholic Church and Mike Whitney is an old detective there.
Oh, I know.
And having somebody like him be so involved with all of our training practices, it does two things. First, I mean, what I'm trying to say is recognizing the retired cops in our region is extremely important because they can be such great community builders. Every time he sees me in church, he's like, he'll tell me something, talk my ear off about something with this nice, cigar laden smell of his breath. Mike, it's Mike.
I do.
But at the same time, he is also, because of all of his training, promoted so much with security policies, making our place safe, and also showing appreciation for the Springfield Police Department.
Yeah.
And
That'd be great.
I think that is actually, if that is an incredible asset. So if you have, my only comment is that retired cops are extremely
Oh, yeah.
important. In this area, especially, in other organizations, whether it's a fraternal organization or a church or something like that,
Yeah.
it's huge. And then also, sometimes I don't always hear about various things that come up. I heard somebody tell about apparently in Thurston, there's vacant properties where maybe there might be some unhoused camping out and some continuous complaints about fire and that sort of thing. And so it's not always on council's radar to know about some of these these things which are nuisances.
Yeah.
And so knowing how we deal with that tactfully, respectfully, and honorably is important, just in terms of that communication, if you continue to get repeat calls from there. So
Sure.
that's all.
I know Mike Whitney very well. I'm very good friends with his daughter.
Yep.
And he was, when he was a police officer, worked with my husband's dad.
Nice.
So I know there's like all those connections back to Mike Whitney, who's been here forever. Yeah, exactly. So he's very funny.
Carla?
So I talked to some Springfield residents. One of the things that kind of rose to the top was that it seems like Springfield police are way more visible in the last month or two. We're seeing more officers out on the streets, and you know, after hearing what they have to go through to go from like applying and going through all of that, taking like 18 months, I did not realize how long it took. But what I said is, I know we've done a lot of hiring.
Yes.
So it's great that they're so visible. So I just wanted to share that. And also, I had a conversation with a couple of residents, you know, and I was just asking them, like, you know, what do you have questions? Do you have concerns? And the concern that rose to the top was the homelessness, and people camping out. And I got to have a really great conversation around some of the new laws. And I was struck with gratitude around that the city lawyer came and talked to us so that we understood what was happening. And so I got to intelligently respond to their concerns. And so, yeah, just wanted to share those.
Thank you.
Brett?
Yeah, so thank you. So obviously all of our agencies, if you're a municipality, are entering budgeting conversations, which is less than fun. I know, you know, similar to the city of Springfield, we're looking at some difficult times ahead. We're starting to meet with our budget committee. However, having said that, I did meet with Lieutenant Crawley, and I think it's probably been a conversation in the chief's office and deputy chief's office. We are looking at hopefully adding a third school resource officer during our budgeting process. And at the time we began this conversation, the police department is fully staffed. Now I'm hearing that you guys have a few hiring challenges with vacancies, but I'm still hopeful that this can move forward. And you know, I just want to highlight and emphasize the great relationship that the school district has with the Springfield Police Department. And I think this third SRO position, if it becomes reality, and obviously there's a little ways to go, would be focusing more on the downtown corridor of Springfield. So we have a SRO, Officer Amundsen out in Thurston. We have Officer Newton at Springfield High School, but I think that's the goal, is to maybe make that officer, the future officer SRO, more accessible to downtown Springfield, which would be obviously accessible to some of our community partners and our businesses and things of that nature. So, you know, we're still just getting into the budgeting process, no promises, but hope. I think that's kind of where we're at as far as the school district goes. Could not be more proud of SRO work, could not be more proud of our relationship with the school, with the police department in the city. So again, just thank you, and hopefully this moves forward.
Thank you. Coming from a city that cut their SROs, I know how invaluable they are. So thank you for your support.
Absolutely, 100%.
Eric?
Just wanted to echo compliments and accolades for the awards ceremony earlier this week. Just always so impressed with how that event is organized and conducted, and just heartwarming really to hear about all the accomplishments and fantastic work that our department's doing for the community. I wish every agency organization had the opportunity to see how that ceremony is conducted, because it's really fantastic. And I think a lot of members in our community would appreciate just hearing those stories, and some of the really you know, humanistic and heartwarming and also somewhat tragic too, you know, situations that our police department and staff and officers are responding to and really succeeding with every year. So just again, thank you for that opportunity to be there and hear about those things. On the Willamette front, as Brett mentioned, yeah, we're getting ready to move into our budgeting season as well. And so far things aren't looking dire. I know that we're fortunate perhaps in that respect. I don't see any expansion of our park ranger program in the near future, but I don't see any reduction of it either. And our 3 members have been with us now for at least a year, if not more, and have really forged some fantastic relationships and connections with their counterparts at SPD. I know we have a new community service officer, I believe, that started just recently, and our new animal control officer. And we'd love to have an opportunity to have a meet and greet and just get connected with the 2 of them when it's convenient. And then I know too, there's a couple other operations questions that I've been asked to follow up on with you, Deputy Chief. So I'll connect with you on that offline. But one of those, as we're heading into spring, is our annual cycle and resurgence of dogs off leash in the parks. And I'm sure Brett maybe has similar things with respect to the school district. So we're looking for creative ideas and suggestions on how we can incentivize, responsible pet ownership and pet presence within our parks so that everyone can enjoy those spaces in a safe and comfortable manner. So maybe another homework item for all of you. If you have any thoughts or ideas from your friends and neighbors, I'd certainly welcome those. That's all I have.
Hey, Eric, just don't include goats on leashes because that would be
Fair enough. Yeah. How is the goat herding going, Brett?
I am not the goat herder, but it's great. They're out there doing their work.
Yeah, super impressed by the school district taking that step. Yeah,
it's one of those fun stories. It's really fun to add that little good energy, positive spin to kind of what we're doing. So yeah, they pretty soon they're going to start making their appearances at various places. So as you guys have public events, if you'd like 1 or 5 goats to make their appearance, we'd be happy to accommodate.
They had the spotlight at the State of the City address. So
yeah, I saw that.
You're gonna need to hire a manager.
That's right. Yeah, agent.
Okay. Any other items from the committee? All right. Well, thanks everyone for a fantastic meeting and your patience as I stumble through chairing my first one. It'll get smoother as we go.
You did a fabulous job.
Excellent. All right. Well, thanks everyone. Have a wonderful evening. We are adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
I'll have your guys' name tags for the next time I see you.
You want to,